All right, we are Samach Ches on the base. Yeah, the top line. Tani, we learned kivuim. If you have a knife, say, which has a removable handle, which we learned about yesterday, and the handle it says tkuim here, but it's a typo. The Gilin Ashah says it should be kavuim. If the handle has been nailed onto the knife, takua means it's just been pushed on. Kavua means it's been nailed on. So if the handle has been nailed onto the knife, chibur l'tuma ula azoya, then they're considered to be connected vis-a-vis tumah. In other words, if one part of the knife becomes tummy, the other part becomes tummy. And to sprinkle part of the water, if you sprinkle on one part, it's if you sprinkle on the entire thing. Now, the Gilin Ashas also raises the next line till the next period. Hanotli v'anoisnim and on chibur. Time out. So it's kivuim. Again, the third line down. Hanoislim v'anoisnim. Well, what do you know? There is a slur. Hanoislim, we're supposed to stay away from windows. That's what my wife called me. Mrs. Ugamer, you want to go away from the window. 74-mile-an-hour winds. The city was not meant for human life. Nobody was meant to live in Chicago. There are 8 million insane people living in this neighborhood. Hanoislim v'anoislim.
You're on tape.
Yeah, I know. Hanoislim v'anoislim. If it's not firmly connected together, not nailed together, but rather just the handle is removable, right? You can put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off. Eno chibur, it's not considered connected. Lo l'tumah, lo la'azoya, not for tumah and not for azoya. It's not connected for any purpose whatsoever. Okay, it's not for becoming tamei together and not for sprinkling. So the question is, if that is the case, why over here did it say, when we learned yesterday, that if you stick a knife onto its handle and you firmly push it together, your tokeya, that you're chayav chatos? Shouldn't be true, because unless it's nailed together, it's not considered to be connected, right? We just said it has to be kavua, not just takua. So why is it? What's the difference? Says what I'll tell you. V'tamon there, it's talking about a case in that price which we just quoted. It's talking about a case where darkon likva, the derech is to be kovea, the derech is to be nailed together. Lo likva, therefore you didn't nail them together, ain't on chibur. Then it's not considered connected. But here, tchiyasan higmar melacha. Here, in this case, where we're talking about Shabbos, we're talking about putting the object together vis-a-vis the halachos of Shabbos. So then, even just to stick it together, that's considered to be sufficiently completed in order to be chayiv. So again, the bottom line is this distinction. By Tumah and Tara, if it's something which is made to be, in order to be considered to be connected, the two things have to be connected together by some, adhesive, so to speak, or some nails or something of that sort. Here, by Shabbos, it depends what's considered to be a completed keli. The normal way of usage. Even if it's not chibur vis-a-vis Tumah and Tara, it still may well be chibur vis-a-vis the halach of Shabbos and make you chayav chatas for having built a keli. Okay? Says the Gemara, Tani, Rav Simoy, Rav Simoy says, Hamarkiv Karen Agula Chayiv. Somebody puts together, this is a type of musical instrument. A round horn, it's like I guess a French horn. It was very complex. And put together your chayiv. Kerem shuta, if it's a straight horn, meaning it's not a complex instrument, it's a simple one. And you put it together, it's not your potter, because it's not considered to be a special, how should I say, craft of putting it together.
But you're still building it special.
Right, but the assumption is that the Keren Agula, like a French horn, is very difficult, and there's a special, right, so it's a special umnus to put it apart and take it back together again. Whereas opposed to a bugle, exactly. So a bugle is just a simple matter to put it apart and take it together. So therefore, by French horn, one is loath to collapse it once one put it together, and that's what's considered to be bonet. Whereas by a bugle, since they are essentially collapsible, so therefore there's no problem of bonet. Okay? Muktzah? Yeah. Muktzah, of course, is regardless, but we're talking all about the chiv of bonet here. Okay? Says Gemara, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Knei menorah chayiv. If you put together the what are they called? The branches. Good word. The branches of menorah are chayiv, right? You put the branches of menorah on, so the menorah is chayiv, right? Because again, it's considered to be more of an elaborate thing than putting the straight bugle on. Says the Gemara, because you don't. I guess the Korban explains because you normally the bugle is collapsible, and that's the derech, whereas the menorah you tend to keep together. So therefore, in that case, there are different cases. Kana shel tzayodin, it's actually a typo. It should be sayodin. The people who plastered the bricks, so they would make successively longer poles in order to reach the plaster up to the levels where they were building. So they would do that by adding on, lengths of pole to the length of the pole, the overall length of the pole. So to do that is considered to be potter. Right, I'm sorry. It's going to be potter, right? So it says more. I don't understand. Why are you chayav by when you put together the menorah? Because you're building. If that's the case, kanashol sayadim lomu potter. In the case of the plaster, why is he exempt? So it says, come on, I'll tell you. Very interesting distinction. The difference is, as the Pnei Moshe explained, because sometimes you make it higher and sometimes you make it lower. In other words, the Kadashil Sayadin, you put on various lengths depending on how high you want to build your building. So therefore, it's made to be longer, extended, or contracted. So therefore, there's no one permanent bonet, right? Whereas, by the case of menorah, the length which you have is always the standard length, and therefore you're not going to change in the middle. Okay? Says the Gemara. Why? Anything collapsible can't be bona deraisa. You can answer it to Rabbana, but you can't answer it to Raisa. Right. Only deraisa. Right. So says the Gemara. If that's the case, b'cholos, I'm sorry, that's the question. B'chola, chover b'cholos. If somebody digs into the sands, harei milo maton matonhu. There, it's also up and down. Now, this is a very difficult thing. What does it mean? It's up and down in the sand. I don't really have a good shot in it, but the way that Pnei Moshe explains it, it means that by the sands also, you're not necessarily makpid on the height of the sand all around you. So therefore, in other words, even if it slips and slides, you don't really care. So therefore, it should be considered to be bonet. Why is that considered to be bonet? So says the Gemara, why you say it's chayev? So Amrei B'Shmuel Bar Yudan, kan l'shor, kan l'shos. I don't understand exactly what went on here, but I'm sure Yudan says when you have this collapsible plasterer's tube, so that's only temporary, and you constantly are putting in segments and taking out segments. Whereas the building in the sand, right? So there you once you build it, you intend to leave it permanently that way. So again, my problem here is I don't understand what the milamalo lamaton thing is as it applies to the sand. I understand how it applies to the building and to the plastering tool, because there you add and take off segments. But I don't fully understand how by the building of the sand, concept lamata going up and going down works.
Well, there may not be. Maybe there is no concept in the sand of milamata.
But that's what the Yerushalmi asked. No, the Yerushalmi, I would ask the question. Granted, but what was the question? Hey, sivun arei achayfer b'chos haramilu malamatanu.
They thought it was also temporary.
Yeah, so maybe that's the question. They thought it was temporary, and it comes out that it's permanent. Could be. I don't have don't have a full understanding of it. Okay, Shmuel says hamalchim. It should be as hatirtzin. This is somebody who in modern Hebrew, malchim, I believe, means to actually weld, but I don't think they had welding back then. So I think that it means here, the way I understand, it means that you are fusing together, you're connecting sides of like a security gate in front of your store. You're connecting together so it stands strong against any possible intruders, right? So when you put you hinge that, I think the way it is that you have like an interlocking hinge, and you put a stick through in order to hold it in place, or something like that. So anyway, we do the Chaim Shabbat that's building. Now, there's a very basic question of that, but kasha. If you do this on Shabbos, we just said you're chayav chatas. That's bonus. Yet Beisil matir mafla hachzir. It says that on Yontif, if you need to open your store, Beisil allows you to open your store and put back the security gate even after you on Yontif itself. If it's an issue the rice on Shabbos, how can we possibly be matir on Yontif? Doesn't seem to be direct or chochol nefesh. So how are we matir on Yontif? So it says the Gemara. I'll tell you. Rabbi Chanani b'shem Riyachon said, "Itiru sovam mipnei tchilaso." They permitted putting the gate back up because they want you to take the gate down to begin with, right? They permitted the last activity because of the first activity. Shim Omar ad shelo yachzir. If you're going to tell him not to put it back, afhu eino posech, he's not going to open the store. So that's how we let him do it. He'll ask the kasha v'lo yiftach. Don't open your store. It's Yontif. Go home, eat, drink, make merry. Why do you have to open your store? Says more, if you don't open your store, afu might be simchas yontif, you diminish other people's simchas yontif. Because assuming other people are contingent on you to get their needs. No, it's not. Simchas yontif.
We had another word. I don't know which one it was.
Well, we haven't really gotten this.
The bottom line issue is that he wouldn't open it to begin with.
Unless he could close it. Okay. Says when he puts it back the security gate, he can't put it back in the normal way. He has to do some sort of shinui in order that it shouldn't be true boner. Okay? So you write the word matir outright. The only time they're meant to take down the security gate and put it back up is when you don't have another opening to your store. If there's another opening to your store, then you use the other opposite. Okay, the other opening where you don't have this problem. Period. Getting back to our Mishnah. Masnisid Rabbi Shimon. Our Mishnah is going to Rabbi Shimon. The Tani. We learned a go rate, somebody who rubs or scratches literally a surface in order to make it, tailor make it. Or a kodeh, somebody who drills. Or a kotzet, somebody who cuts. Koshu b'Shabbos chayiv, no matter how small he's chayiv. Reb Shimon Omer, a go raid, or it should be a go there, at shiur kol circle, until you finish the service, the entire necessity you have. Hakodech, somebody who drills. Ad sheikta kol circle, until he drills all he needs to have. Hakotzet, somebody who chops. Ad sheiktzot kol circle. Ha'oved or somebody who tans. Ad she'avi kol circle, until he tans all he needs to tan. V'am Rabbi Yaakov Barachol lo asi al Rabbi Shimon. This is only going like Rabbi Shimon. What? Yeah, it says B'tzmiya. 1 second.
And he tells his people, he commands his servants, right, not to feed him and not to give him drink. But someone came and he gave him food, but to give him drink. So the king hears, want to get angry. But I think you are called avodim, so now it says avodim. If Hashem didn't give it to him, why should you give it to him?
No, it's interesting. The Pnei Moshe thing disagrees with the Korban.
Yeah, I made a mistake. I didn't look at the Pnei Moshe. I didn't look when I was praying. I didn't look back at the Mishnah to see what the Mishnah actually said. But the Pnei Moshe says what I really should say back on the fifth line from the bottom of Samach Ches on basis Mastis and Delok Rabbi Shimon, because our Mishnah says that you're chayev on a kol shu. The Mishnah at the beginning of the parak said you're chayev on kol shu. Okay, it said you're chayev on kol shu. So really, says the Bnei Moshe, the Girsa should be over here, Masdisin to Lo Rabbi Shimon. Okay? Because Rabbi Shimon is the one who says you have to do a full amount of work. Whatever is necessary for the object you're working with. So our Mishnah says the kosher is not going like Rabbi Shimon, obviously. Okay, so says more now on the top of Samach Tes. Rabbi Yaakov Barachol lo asya elak Rabbi Shimon. It's only going like Rabbi Shimon. The Rabbanon, Rabbi Shimon lo ava mitzvahs malacha kukula. Rabbi Shimon doesn't look at part of malacha as being the entire malacha. Rabbanan avdi mixas malacha kekula. Yeah, it still doesn't work. So what's Rabbi Yaakov Bar Achla saying?
The king said not to. He has compassion for his son. It's a son of the king instead of a servant of the king. Right?
No, Rabbi Shmuel, Moshe brought that down from Sugim Sachin.
I mean, nobody would be that close to his own son.
I don't know. Problem is when I was praying again, I didn't pay any attention to the names. So let's try this like this. Let's try the Korban Eido. From Rabbi Yaakov Bar Achla, the top of Samach. From Rabbi Yaakov Bar Achla, Rabbi Yaakov Bar Achla said, "Lo asyu elok Rabbi Shimon." The way he says that it's
He said to Matzim Kriyim Bonim or Kriyim Bonim.
Still not working.
The emotion of prior
So he answers him.
now let's just change the gearsa here. From Rabbi Yaakov Bar Achla, Lo asyu elok Rabbanan.
It's the beauty of Yerushalmi.
Yeah, let's change it to Rabbanan. When in doubt, just play with the gearsa.
Oh, so you have some back. This is
Now he thinks.
But Dalet Ayin, which stands for Das Atzmi. And then it works. Rabbi Yaakov Bar Achla, Lo asyu elok Rabbanan. Right, so it's going like only like Rabbanan. Because the Rabbi Shimon love and mitzvahs malacha kekula. Rabbi Shimon doesn't make a little bit of malacha like an entire malacha, so he wouldn't be mechayv in a mashu. Whereas Rabbanan have the mitzvahs malacha kekula. Rabbanan say part of malacha is like a full malacha, right? So therefore, it's our mission is going like Rabbanan, not like Rabbi Shimon. Truth is that works very well. V'kasha the Shimon Gamliel. Now the Ma'aseh v'kasha Shimon Gamliel. Shimon Gamliel did appear in our Mishnah. Shimon Gamliel said, at the end of our Mishnah, somebody who hits on the anvil at the end of the malacha is chayiv because he's fixing the malacha. Now, the way we understand the Mishnah is that he's fixing the anvil and fixing the hammer by pounding on them. So now that we're asking Rishon Gamliel, you'll not tzor. If you took a scythe in order to harvest, he didn't harvest shema klumu. So did you do anything? So here too, you might have made preparations to start beating metal or whatever else you're going to do as a smith. But Lamaisi didn't do anything. So what are you chayiv on, right? So Rabbi Ada, Isad Rabbi Shin Gamliel Rabbi Yehuda. He says very interesting answer, and the Bavli doesn't give this answer. The Bavli says you're taka being misakin the anvil or being misakin the hammer, and that's misakin mona. Yerushalmi gives a different answer. Rabbi Yada said, "Aser Shin Gamliel Rabbi Yehuda, or Shin Gamliel is going to Rabbi Yehuda." The Tani Ashovit v'mekatket alori, somebody who smooths the weave. That's Ashovit v'mekatket. I assume something similar. Carbonator says it's like also something to do with smoothing the weave. So I raise a chayim nushu kamiyashiv yodo. You're chayim because you're training your hand. Meaning the chiyuv here is for you having accomplished not something with the wool, with the weave so much, but accomplishing something in your own personal expertise. Enhancing your expertise in doing a certain craft on Shabbos entails misakin. Why is it misakin? Not because you're misakin the garment or the object, you're being misakin yourself. So to you, when you're hitting with the anvil, with the hammer on the anvil, here too, you're training yourself how to do it properly, and that's a form of misakin.
But it's a very interesting smart. It's intangible. It's
right, even though it's an intangible.
As a physical object, right. But it's a very good smart.
That's right. Okay, I think places in the Bible does bring this down, not the Gemara itself. All right, halacha base. Choresh koshu. If you plow, you're chayav no matter how small you do it. Hamanakesh, you weed, no matter how small you do it. Hamakasem mizari, there's various ways in which you remove pieces of wood, branches of a tree that you don't like. Koshu. Hamlakit eitzim, if you're collecting wood. L'sakin, for a positive purpose. Kosher. And the shears, no matter how small. Imasi we're doing in order to cook the levashel beitzakala enough to cook a small egg. Hamlakit asovim. If somebody corrects grass, l'sakin with a positive intent, kosher, in other words, the positive intent is to fix up his field, to remove the grass which is cluttering up his field. So you're chayiv. Kosher, no matter how small a shear. Im lebehema, if you're doing it for your animal, kimlo pikdi, then the shear is the shear of the mouth of a how much a goat would eat. Not more. You don't need not less than that, because to eat you need more than a kosher. Ma charisha is a mishkan. What charisha? What plowing did they do in the mishkan? If they plowed in order to plant the dyes. How much do you have to plow in order to be chayiv? Right? Enough to plant one cress. Rabbi Bob Shem Rav said to plant the male end, in other words, the narrow end of a wheat. Timothy, we learned over there. Zorak Yeshuin, we had this in the Yerushalmi around a month ago. Zorak Yeshuin, Shnaim, the shear for pumpkin seed, if you intend to plant it, is 2 pumpkin seeds. Zered Luim, well, Yeshuim is actually gourds. I don't remember which is pumpkin, which is gourds. But Zorak Luim, if you plant it, let's say this is gourds. Shnaim, the shear is 2. What? I know, one is a generic term, one is a more specific term. Tani, we learned chiti madoyos, median wheat, the shear is time, the shear is 2. Shmuel Shem Rabbi Zira said, chiti ma'ideshin chavivos, wheat because it is people like wheat. Also, so kashar zira nagina she'ena ne'cholim. They made it like other types of seeds which are not eaten, meaning even though the shear for edible foods is normally a grogeres, since people like planting this wheat, so therefore they made the shear when you plant it, not a grogeres, but rather the shear like any other seed, which is what? 2 seeds. Okay? That's all you need to be chayav. Lamoli, says the Gemara, why do I need to mention this business about Kamole Pikdi, right? That we already, or actually, more precisely, the Korban puts it, why I need in the Sefer that it's L'sakin Kol Shehu? We already know from the ratio that it's L'sakin, anything is a Kol Shehu. So why is it mentioned in the Sefer L'sakin Kol Shehu? But that, in other words, if you're going to fix your field by gathering this grass, the shear is even smaller than a grogeres. So it says, well, I'll tell you, L'sakin Kol Shehu is mentioned in Lomali, in order to teach us the other halach of Kamole Pigdi, that if it's not L'sakin, the shear is not the shear of a kosher, then the shear is the full size of a goat's mouth. Okay, halacha gimel. Hakosef shtei somebody who writes 2 letters. Bein b'yamino, bein b'shmol, whether it's right hand or with his left hand. Bein b'shem echad, whether they are the same letter. Bein b'shnei shemos, are 2 different letters. Bein b'shtei sameos, even if they're 2 symbols. B'chol lashon, any language, he's chayav. Rabbi Yossi, when he's chayav shtei osios, the chiv on 2 letters is actually not because of writing 2 letters, el mishum roshim, but because of marking. Not because of kosei, but because of marking. Shekachi uroshmin al karshi mishkan. They used to make marks on the krushim in the mishkan, on the beams of the mishkan. Leda ezu ben zugo, to know which one was the proper one which corresponded to it on its right and on its left. Rabbi said, "Matzir shein katon mishein gadol." We found in Chayv you write a smaller name from a bigger name. What's an example of that? Shem mishima. You stop writing after the shin mem, and you have the name Shem instead of writing Shimon. You're Chayv on that. So too, Mishmuel, same idea. If you write Shem as part of Shmuel. Or Noach mi Nachar, you wrote Noach out of the name Nachar, or Don mi Daniel, or God mi Gadiel. In all these cases, you're chayav because you obviously are considerate in this case to have written something which has significance, even though it's only 2 letters long, and that's chayav because of ksiva. Okay, Mantana Simonios. It said in the Reishon Mishnah before we even introduced Rabbi Yossi that if one writes signs or marks, that's sufficient. Who said that? Rabbi Yossi. Says Gemara, it's Rabbi Yossi who said that. And the way the Farshim explained that it means that the entire mission is going like Rabbi Yossi. It's even the same. It's made before Rabbi Yossi came on the scene. Were made by Rabbi Yossi. Okay. How do we say that again? Because Roshem is otherwise not chayiv. It would only be kosev, only writing, not marking. Who's the one who says you're chayiv also on marking? Only Rabbi Yossi. Okay, matar again. Matar samanis Rabbi Yossi. Ma b'chol lashon. What does it mean you're allowed to write in any? You're not allowed to write in any language. Afilu elef alpha. Even to write instead of afilu aleph alpha. Even to write instead of an aleph, you write an alpha. Instead of a beis, a beta. Instead of a gimel, a gamma. Right? You're still chayiv. Right? Because it's obviously still legible and usable. The chayash loma. Now, says more a few technical questions. Rabbi Yossi's question, Shita, was they didn't have actual letters. All they had was marks. So it says more, v'chash loymar, shouldn't be afraid, shema yite milamato lamalon. If you only had marks, so you won't know which way is up. Right? I know which way is up. That was a very strange question. Why is it a very strange question?
Because they're probably right in the bottom of the pole rather than the top.
No.
Because if you write some marks, you don't know which one is up or down if it's not legible.
Much more practical than that. You'll kick yourself. Yes, you will. The bottom was split in order to make the Adonim.
Oh.
Oh, so you don't have to lie.
Top was not split, so I know what the Yerushalmi is even asking. So it's worthy of a kick? It's getting there, right?
I'm not into masochism.
The truth is, I didn't think of that till right now. When I was preparing it, I didn't realize it. But if the whole Yerushalmi's question doesn't start because it's the bottom had holes had prongs in order to fit into the sockets of the bases. So you know which one was. Nevertheless, Yerushalmi says Kamin Kamusim Ayosuyim. They had one mark, and the one mark was made like an arrow. Kumus means like a quill, like a fancy fountain pen. So in that case, the mark pointed towards whichever direction was supposed to go up. Okay, it said this side up, but without the this side up. But still, aren't you afraid? Now you're going to put it inside out, right? And you're putting the right side in. So again, that's a very strange question. So I mean, you could just say whatever side held the markings, right? So, but nonetheless, here it does give a practical answer. It says tabos mochichos. There were actually rings on the outside of the Mishkan to hold the brichim, to hold the rods which connected the Mishkan together. So therefore they didn't need the mark to tell them anything. Wherever the rings were, that was on the outside, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, but maybe they won't be in exactly the same position. How many beams are there altogether? Altogether. I think there were 30.
30? Yeah.
I want to say 30. 20, 20, and 10.
Yes.
So maybe how do you know you'll have them always in the exact same order? So here the Mepharshim say if it would have had Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, so you would have known the order.
Right.
But just had markings on them, so how do you know which order to put them in? Right? You won't know. So it says the Gemara, Am Rabbi Yacha Luchson Hayakosav Alein. They were marked on an angle, meaning the way the Mepharshim explain it, if beam number 1 was marked like this, so beam number 2 was marked like this, and beam number 3 was marked like this, and beam number 4 was marked like this, and so on and so forth. You knew how to put them. Okay, should really make the arrow. For name it, that was the idea. Okay, so the placement of the angle will tell you how to put them. It says more, who cares? Let's switch the locations. What's the big deal? Rabbi said about Kimosis on Mishkan Kamishpato. Yeah, it says you have to put it the Mishkan according to its judgment. Is there a judgment on wood? What it means, Kamishpato means like its previous rule. And that means that a keresh, a beam which had the schus linasim mitzapon should always be to be put on the north. Linasim mitzapon should always be in the north. but north. Bedorim on the south, you're not saying Bedorim should be put on in the south, etc. Now, this is an interesting thing, which is that from here we learn the makor for racing striped tzitzis.
Oh,
You know what racing striped tzitzis are?
yeah, that's all.
Black,
Yeah,
With the black thing in front.
Yeah,
So
the
the
back, yeah.
reason why that is there is in order to know which side is front, because the Sefer says that Keresh should nita on the tzaf, and the olim nasi mitzaf, and the one which goes on the north should always go north. It has to do
Right.
with any davar shebekdusha, as also anything, any object. So therefore, it also has to do with tzitzis.
Right.
That's why they put the racing stripe on one side in order to know which goes
it could
front.
be could a V cut instead
There are
of.
many different ways to
That's
do
where I
it.
get the big
That's
cut.
true. Okay, granted.
With the two holes.
All right, give me a need a drink of water. Okay, I'm just gonna get a drink. It says no further.
Oh, good.
Now, fascinating Gemara. Okay, a little bit of a gadata here. Based on the previous Gemara. In the Rabbi Yeshua, the members of the house of Rabbi Yeshua, and Uda Bar Pazi, the members of the house of Bar Pazi, they would go to ask the Shalom of the Nasi each and every day. They go to ask, I guess, Rebbe, whoever it was. As in the Rabbi Yeshua, so the people would go to the people from the house of Rabbi Yeshua would go only in Kadmoi. They would go in first. Okay, they were going for first. The nafkin come out first. Now, this is the custom. I guess they would say more chashuv. Aslin Elaine de Bar Pazi. So it happened that the family of Bar Pazi went Vischasnus Benes Yusa, and they married into the Nasi's family. So they became related, right? So us and boy and male come on Kanmoi. So they wanted to go in first. They said, okay, now it's our turn to go in first to give shalom, right? We should get that tzchus. Ishtaletz Rabbi Ami, so they went to ask Rabbi Ami. Omer Lun Rabbi Ami said, no. It says you said at the Mishkan according to its proper law. This obviously was not Rebbe, because Rebbe was earlier than Rabbi Ami. I don't know exactly which Nasi was, one of the later Nasim. So it says, is there a judgment for the trees, for the beams, Ezu Keresh Zochli Nasim Mitzafon, whichever beam was on this north, Nasim Mitzafon is always to be placed on the north. Bedarim, those who are placed on the south, Nasim Bedarim should be placed on the south. And therefore, since the family of Rabbi Yeshua always preceded you, the family of Bar Pazi, even though now you married into the Nasi's family, they still precede you in the ritual of going in and giving shalom to the Nasi first. However, there was a ma'aseh that the Bulvutaya, what it means is the nobleman, Upagnaya. Now Pagnaya, Lieberman brings down a girsa Pagmaya. Pagmaya means people who had a Pagam Mishpacha. In other words, not only that they're not noble aristocrats, they were, had question mamzeris or something of that in their family. Okay? So they also come to ask, inquire as to health of the Nasi. B'choyo, every day. Bavu Butaya, Buvutay, whatever. The nobleman, Oli Kadmoi, would go in first, and Nafkin Kadmoi come out first. As in Pagnaya or Pagmaya, the damaged ones went, V'zochim Baraisa, they learned Torah, and they merited great godless in Torah. As in Boy Me'el Kadmoi, so they wanted to go in first now, because they became Talmidei Chachamim. Ishtalos Rabbi Shimon Lakish, so they asked for Ish Lakish. Shalos Rabbi Shimon Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Shimon Lakish turned and asked Rabbi Yochanan. Or Rabbi Yochanan v'Darsha. So Rabbi Medrash, Rabbi Yochanan came with Darshan and Beis Medrash. The Rabbi V'noya, the Beis Medrash, Rabbi V'noya, guess when the Bati Medrash in Tveria. Afilu Mamzer, Talmid Chacham, Kodem, L'Kohen Gadol, Ha'Ma'aretz. Even a Mamzer, his Talmid Chacham comes prior to Kohen Gadol and Ha'Ma'aretz. So Savin Meimar, they thought initially that meant Lifdus, you get him clothing first, you redeem him first if he gets for the captivity, Lifdus, you get him clothing, Lachios, and you support him. But Holy Yeshiva, in terms of covet in the Yeshiva, who gets to come to Nasi first? Well, they thought that doesn't pertain there, that there the Mishpach of the Yichus goes in before the Mamzer. Says the Gemara, Amar Rebbe, or here maybe it's Rabbi Yochanan supposed to be. Maybe Apli Yeshiva also go in earlier. In other words, the people of the Pagmaya should go in before the Bultaya. My timer, what pasuk teaches us that? Yikara Himi Pninim, the Torah is more precious than Pninim, than precious jewels. Afilu Mizesh Nilchas Lifnai Lifnim means even more kosher than he who enters the Fnai Lifnim, the Kodesh Kadoshim. Who's that? Who are Lom the Torah more important than? The Kohen Gadol. Okay. Says Gemara.
Was this in the bottom?
What part?
About the Mamzer, Talmud Chacham.
Yeah, but not about the covenant in the yeshiva. That's a new thing. That's not about. And it's in Horios. It's one of the small mesechtas. And Mazikin. Says Gemara. Tani, we learned in our Mishnah, it says you're God mi gadil, but the Mashbiach points out it's an obvious mistake. Should be done mi Daniel. Said our Mishnah done mi Daniel. Mates Mesimil Rabbi Yehuda. So that's Rabbi Yehuda. How can you say that done mi Daniel is chayev? Follow Elub Shuti ve'Elub Kluf, and the Nun in Daniel is what? Short. It's klufin. It's curved. And the Nun in Daniel is long. So therefore, how can you have the short one be mechayev you if it's abbreviated from the long one? It's not it's not the same way you write the short one. God mikadil taka woodwork, because the gimel daled is the same no matter what way they're written. But the Don mi Daniel, the Gemara asks will not work, and the Gemara doesn't give an answer. Time b'shem Rabbi Yehuda. We learn the name Rabbi Yehuda. Kosav shtei osio shavim. If a person writes two letters which are identical. Vein shem echad, vein shem, and their name, meaning that they have meaning, even though it's the same letter written twice. So then chayev. What's your chayev? What's an example? Could go on sheish, which means 6. Teis, which means to give. Gag, which means a roof. Drad means go down, and chach, which is a type of jewelry. Rabbanan Amri. Rabbanan say, "Shtei otios mikol makom." No matter what the two letters spell, you're still chayev. Makes no difference. Ashkichis Omar. So from this you come out to say a kal's v'chamer. So each side has a kal and the chomer, not a kal v'chomer. Where each side presents a leniency and a severity. How so? Here too the gears are slightly mixed up. Ashkichis Omar kal's chamers al the Rabbi Yehuda. Oh, there's a word missing here. So we have Ashkichis al the Rabbon. No, okay, I see. Lieberman changed like this. Okay. Ashkes Amar Kaus v'Chames. Al Rabbi Yehuda Kaus v'Chames. And Rabbi Yehuda didn't get one thing Kal and one Kal v'Chomer. And now he changes to Kaus al the Rabbana. There's still something missing. The bottom line is, you want to see is kula according to each of them. And now the word's going to give an example. 5 lines at the bottom, the last words in the line. Kasev shtei osio shavim. If somebody writes 2 letters which are similar, ve'ein shem in their name, al daita Rabbi Yehuda chayev. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that's chayev. Al daita Rabbana, according to Rabbana, you're potter. Right? Right. So that's the case for who's machmir? Rabbi Yehuda. Who's meiko? Rabbana. What about the exact opposite? Skipping down to the next line, according to the no. Not skipping them. According to you're supposed to write Kal said Rabbi Yehuda. How do you call it the Kula according to Rabbi Yehuda? So then we have Osios Mikol Makom. Avapi She'ein Shem. You have letters, no matter what they spell, even though they don't make a proper name or a proper significant entity, right? You're chayev. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Al Daitin Rabbana chayev. According to Rabbana, you're chayev. According to Rabbi Yehuda, right? According to Rabbi Yehuda Potter. So in this case, we have one case in which each side is machmir and this machlokas, each side is meiko. Okay, now then, ask a new question. This question is totally unrelated to the previous sugya. L'chava shitase Rabbi Yehuda, have a steer in Rabbi Yehuda. What's the stira? The Tani we learned Yachol Archu Yichlo Ves Hashem. You have to write the entire name, Achiori is called beggar, or do you have to weave the entire garment? Achiasa called nub until you make the entire sieve. Tam lomer meachas. No, you only have to make meachas, part of it, but not all of it. Even if you only write one letter, I feel oral chutechad. If you only knit one string, I feel also bais echad. Even if you only made one small opening, v'nafak in the sieve and in the, I think the other fancy English word is colander. Colander. Okay. Do you know what the difference is?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Colander is actually heavy metal with holes, and then the sieve is like wire.
Really?
Wire.
So that's between enough and core, but I don't know which is which.
Because if you ask for a sieve, that's what they give you, this wire mesh.
I knew. I never asked for a colander.
Colander.
Do you know what a colander was?
Something when you find out the date.
So I might say that you have to do all the entire thing. Even one letter is enough. I feel orag, even if you knit one string, it's enough. I feel also even if you made one house, one opening in the sieve and the colander, the chayiv tamlor v'asa achas. You have to do one. Haketzad achiasa melachah shekayetzav miskemes. You have to do one, which is permanent, just like Hashem, so to speak, who's permanent. So you have to do achiasa melachah shekayetzav miskayem is something which is permanent. Now. So here Rabbi Shimon says that you have to do something which is permanent, something significant. I should say significant is a better word. Yet on the other hand, you see, now this is somebody who tamps down the weave once it's woven to make sure it's straight. But it's certainly not a malacha miskemes because it's not going to last. So therefore, if that's the case, why you chayiv? Hashoviv adaktik oragaris achayiv. Ibnei shub miyashiv yodo. I'll tell you why he's chayiv. Why is he chayiv in that case? For what? Not for the malacha per se, but rather for what? It's chayiv for. What does miyashiv yodo mean?
Is it Misakin?
Misakin what?
That's what we had before. Yashiv Yoda.
Right, Sakin himself.
Oh, himself.
Sakin himself, because by doing this, you learn how to weave better, you learn how to sew better. So that's why you're chayiv in this case. He holds, not by the Kohen Rabbi Yehuda, because we had steer Rabbi Yehuda. Because in one place Rabbi Yehuda said you have to do the entire thing, another place Rabbi Yehuda said you only have to do part of it. Right? So how to reconcile the two? We say he's doing part. The reason why he's chayiv is because he's doing what? For what purpose? Right, to learn the business. Okay,
So
in himself.
Can you extend this to a student who's on Shabbos reading?
I've actually seen that done. I don't think it's a valid extension, but you could make that extension. You could make that extension.
Well, yeah, you're doing a physical act, but if you're reading something to improve your technique, let's say a law case or a surgical case.
Right. I don't think you say it because I think it's what? What you say? I don't think it's a 100% comparable case, because in the case of our Mishnah, we're talking about where he's going to do.
Where he said,
oh boy, I just said something on my tip of my tongue. I forgot what it was.
Hashta K, Yechayet. Man, the Sonny one.
Well, okay, you're training your body or hands to do something.
Yeah, you make a good
If you're
distinction.
reading, you're not really training, you're just learning.
One is reading and training your mind, and the other one is training your hands.
Yeah, but you can.
So one's a physical activity, the other is reading a mental.
Sounds good. But I had something to my tongue and I don't want to go on. Just a minute.
All right, take that. Anyway, my son is going over with Jerry Springer's daughter tonight.
Oh my God.
Well, she's legally blind, though, so it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Those that hate us. Those that we hate.
What?
Like she anything like her father?
I don't know, I'll find out. We built it. Probably not.
It's a big schus.
I don't think so. He said, it's gotta be late 20s at least.
I don't know the answer. You're right. I forgot what I was going to say. All right, I can't remember. Halacha down. HaKosev Shtei Osios. Somebody writes 2 letters. HaKosev Shtei Osios. Somebody writes 2 letters in one period of forgetfulness. Chayev. Kosav B'dio. Person writes with ink. B'sam, with a certain kind of chemical. B'sikra, another kind of chemical. B'kumos, kankatom, other types of chemicals. Chot avashroshim, anything which makes a mark. Al shnei kos lebayis, a person writes on two walls of the house. Al shnei dapei pinkos, on 2 pages in a book. V'negin zem, somehow you can line them up together so they're going to be pronounced together with each other naturally. Chayev, then you're chayev. HaKosev al b'sarosam writes on his skin is chayev. On the side of b'sarosam, he scratches on his skin. It was mechayev b'chatas, it's considered to be a form of writing. B'shul poter, b'shul says you're accepted. Okay? Says HaKosev b'dio al yerakos. If you write with ink, but you write on vegetable leaves. Mashkin, if you write with beverages, with made payros, or with beverages or with fruit juice, which is not miskayim. Al luach, which isn't on a luach, even though luach the board is miskayim potter.
Sherlock Holmes, by the way, must have learned this Yerushalmi because he has made Peros in one of his mysteries as hidden writing.
Who's this?
So therefore,
Sherlock Holmes.
Oh.
No,
that's
about
different.
invisible ink.
That's
Right.
So if you don't see it, and then you have to light up a candle, or you see it, and then it disappears.
Right. So the bottom line is achi yichtov. You have to write davar shel kayama, something which is permanent. Al davar shel kayama, something which is permanent. Okay. So it has to be both aspects. Have to be shel kayama. Rabbi Yaakov Rabbi Yosef b'shem Rabbi Elazar said, "Kosov osa echad b'Tveria." If you v'rite one letter in Tveria, v'osal tzipori, another letter in Tzipori, chayev. And you're chayev. Asking we're not going to be. But then we learn he made a negim same if they can't be read together. Then potter says Yerushalmi Ari Rabbi Bar Memel. Rabbi Bar Memel said we're talking about bisrola. Now the Rishonim actually, the Rashba changed that to seed ra or seed dak. That means that it's a peelable plaster. The letter won't get ruined if you move it from one wall and put it on another wall. So therefore, it's not mechusar. It's just mechusar kriva. It hasn't yet been done, but could hypothetically be done. Since hypothetically it could be done, so therefore you don't have any problem of not being read together. Again, even if it's written on 2 separate pages in a book, right? If you can press the pages together, it's good enough. So too, if you wrote one letter in Tzipori, another letter in Tveria, if somehow the letters can be put together and read together, so that's sufficient.
You know, Lieberman would say that these 2 cities weren't just Galatazay written, Tzipori and Tveria, because part of the Yerushalmi the bulk of the Yerushalmi was written in Tveria, part of it was written in Tzipori.
So what would Lieberman say?
That's what Lieberman says in his introduction, that part of the Yerushalmi, the bulk of the Yerushalmi that has the difficult Aramaic, was written in Tveria.
Yeah.
The Yerushalmi that has more Hebrews mixed in was written in Tzipori.
That's interesting.
So that's why these 2 cities were
So that's what I'm,
used
so
as examples.
that's what I'm saying, right? That's why.
That's interesting because Mashbiach actually says that I wasn't going to mention this, but he says that these 2 cities are just taken as an example. He says the truth is that the cities are right next to each other. Even though Tveria and Tzipori are not right next to each other, they're 40 miles apart. But that's what Mashbiach was saying. They just took 2 cities out of a hat. Which is very similar to what you're saying. Not quite the same, but very similar.
I'm saying there's a purpose.
No, but you're saying the purpose has nothing to do with their distance from each other.
Right, nothing to do with their distance.
And that's similar to the Mashbiach, and they say its purpose has nothing to do with their distance. The purpose, on the contrary, they weren't distant from each other. Historically, these 2 were, but in this case, that's not the emphasis, because the cities are next to each other. And the Yitkaretz Girsos Besidra, meaning that they're in order, one next to each other. Okay, says Yerushalmi for further. Eidim. No, I don't think so. Oh, we have to Eidim little Zayin at the beginning of the line.
No. Not true?
Oh, you swear b'svara.
Right.
You see, Dr. Smith?
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Okay, Eidim she'ein yoim lachtom. Witnesses who don't know how to sign the document. Shimon Lokashon Roshan name b'dio. You write in front of them with ink. Vein chayzev sikra, and they put a different kind of ink on top of that. They trace a different kind of ink on top. Or vice versa, b'sikra, you write it in, the sikra thing is red ink. Vein chayzev b'dio, and they sign in black ink. It said, since in just because we're machmir in Shabbos, literally we dabble in Shabbos, and we say that you putting one bulb on top of I'm thinking electricity. One ink on top of each other is chayav, right? So you want to say since putting one ink on top of each other is chayav, so therefore it must be that ink on top of ink is a significant act. If it's a significant act, then the Eidim should be allowed to sign their signatures above the lower signatures, and that should be considered significant enough that they signed the document, right? So it says just because they said by Shabbos, it doesn't. Where we're machmir, we say don't do that. It doesn't mean that we can be make by getting and say that that's sufficient, or by any document and say that's sufficient. So again, who wants to be the limits the way you can do with the nation, right? So how can you possibly matter based on this svara? Ella, rather, maybe near a cholak. What you do is you can't put ink on top of ink because maybe that's not considered to be bona fide writing. What you do is you bring stencil paper. You bring in blank paper, right? And you rip open the shape of the letters in the paper, right? And they sign by filling in the stencils. So Rabbi Reish Lakish didn't like Reish Lakish didn't like this, right? He said, "V'lo ksav yodo shorishanu." If that's the case, if you're just following the rips, which the first guy made in the paper, so it's really his signature and not your signature, right? So it says the Gemara, who machlif name is aketa, the guy who signs is akera. The guy who signs is to expand the rip a little bit to make it his own rip. So that he now is, this, I'm not sure I'm getting this across. In other words, to make the stencil, he has to tamper with the stencil a little bit so it becomes his signature, not just the signature of somebody else, so to speak, dictated to him. Okay? Rabbi Mona Boy. Rabbi Mona asks, V'lama leinon omrim roshim livnei b'mayim. Why don't leinon here means ein onu, or lanu ein, right? Means why don't we give another answer? Why don't we say that if we have eidim or amaratim, we mark the paper for them in water, which certainly is going to race again. And the eidim sign on top of that. And if the people can't come and complain, their cancellation doesn't mean anything. Their complaint doesn't mean anything. It's hard to hear yourself talk about in the background and concentrate. I made a mistake. No, it's not. I made a mistake. Sorry, the mistake I made is the Pnei Moshe. I have it underlined. I forgot. This is the answer. And the answer is meaning if you first make a mark with water on the paper, so the Baal or whoever else the Baal did will come and complain and say, no. They weren't really signing. They were just it's not really their signature because I saw the watermarks are there before. Or the Korban Eidah says the problem was that if you sign on top of water, so it makes the ink look less intense. Right. So since the ink loses the tense, so therefore people are going to come and question the validity of the star. So it says in Baviro. Irur Batel doesn't mean that we cancel his complaint, but rather his complaint is a potential to cancel the get, whatever we're dealing with. So therefore, we don't allow you to sign with water under the ink, you have to just sign with the ink directly, and the way to do that is by ripping, rips in the paper and having the Adam sign on top of that. Okay.
That original, do you remember from the Bible the original machlokas with Yochanan Reish Lakish here about the signing, filling in the rosh, the dio on top of sikra on top of dio? There was that machlokas in the Bible, wasn't there?
It's in two places. I'm getting in the Shabbos. I don't remember it at all.
Well, I remember it in Shabbos. You had like boxes of letters that were blank, just the outlines of it, and they filled it in.
That's a different issue.
That's something else.
That's something else, yeah. But I don't remember how it squares together. Okay, hakarela, or if you rip on skin, kitam nisksav, something which looks like now most unfortunately learn here like the Bavli, that this is talking about a case where you rip your own skin. Right? You rip your skin in the shape of letters, you're chayiv, right? Haroshim, or if you write on your skin, kitab nisksav, something which looks like writing, then you're potter. Then you're exempt because it's not considered to be true. It's not permanent, right? Amar said about lo ben sato. What about ben sato? Lo maybe kshavim mitzrayim bekach. Didn't he do sneak through customs and bring kshavim, bring magical formulae out of Egypt by ripping them, by writing them onto his skin? So we see it's a form of writing. So they said, just because he was an idiot rolling the skin, for him we're going to be for several smart people, therefore we don't extrapolate from him, and the bottom line is that anybody else who writes on their skin is potter. It's only this Ben Sato who's the Yotzei Min HaKlal. Alright, we'll stop here for today.
Ben Sato didn't take a bath.
Yeah.
I didn't know these two people.